Hello, scumbags. It's Andrew Fantasia here, and this is High Ground. I've got the high ground, but unlike Obi-Wan, I'm going to share it with all of you. So hop on to the high ground with me. There's plenty of space. Let's talk about Resistance Reborn. This is a book that I have been looking forward to for so long. I've been looking forward to it before it was even announced. And here's what I mean by that, because I'm not a psychic that I know of. The reason I was looking forward to Resistance Reborn since before it was announced is because I like Star Wars books, but I don't love Star Wars books. And the reason that's the case, not always, sometimes I do love some books, sometimes I hate some of the books, but the reason that the books have always been kind of lukewarm with me, Luke Skywalker warm, is because of something that I like to call the Skelly effect. If you look back at the very first book of New Canon, A New Dawn, you got Kanan, Jarrus, and Hera and what have you. But then you got this character they introduce in that book who is super annoying named Skelly. And Skelly is all over that G-damn book. You can't get away from Skelly. He's everywhere. He has all these big moments. Spoilers, he dies this big grand hero's death at the end. And it's like, oh yeah, Skelly, he did it. And I'm just reading there. I'm like, I don't care about Skelly. And the Skelly effect happens in pretty much every Star Wars book I can think of. And the way I define it in my own weird, supple brain is that there's just, you have this novel where it takes place in the Star Wars universe, and yeah, maybe Han Solo is in the book, or yeah, maybe BB-8 is in the book, but the book is going to spend a lot of its time, a bigger chunk of its time, on Skelly, or characters like Skelly that the author made up for this story. If you throw it onto a pie chart, you've got like 80% of the pie is Skelly, and then there's like a little wedge like that. That would be the Han Solo content of the book. And yes, it's fine. These are creative people. They're creative writers. So sure, create new characters. That's what New Canon is for, to make the universe larger. I understand that. It's just, at the same time, I've gotten to a point where I'm like, okay, I love Luke. I love Leia. I love Han and the droids and Chewbacca. I love Rey and Poe and Finn. Can I please, for the love of God, get a book about them? Just them going on adventures. And finally, after 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18, 6 years of Star Wars books in New Canon, we've finally got Resistance Reborn. And yes, it is about Poe and Leia and their homies going on adventures. This really feels like a Star Wars movie. Some books don't feel like Star Wars movies. They don't. This one does, because it's action-packed from start to finish. There's not a whole lot of people sitting around chatting, even though that does happen. It's more of an action-oriented story. It feels like you're watching a movie. There's lots of planet hopping. They don't just stay in one spot all the time. There's lots of like, okay, Poe, you go to, Mimbin or whatever and go do something there. Meanwhile, I'm going to screw off to Bespin for like 20 minutes and have an adventure on Bespin. Yeah, Leia was a central character in a couple of books, but they were very much booky books. They were great books. I love Bloodline and Leia, Princess of Alderaan, but they didn't feel like Star Wars movies. They felt like Star Wars books, and that's okay. I still love them. This feels like a Star Wars movie. Particularly, it feels like the climax of a Star Wars movie, like the climax of Return of the Jedi, where you have 3 different battles going on 3 different fronts, and then eventually they all coalesce into one final thing for the climax. So it was really refreshing to finally see that happen, and I got to give Rebecca Roanhorse credit for writing this ambitious story in that way and tying all these elements together. Now, yes, Resistance Reborn does introduce new characters that you follow, but they don't feel like they're getting in the way of the action. Skelly felt like he was getting in the way of the action, because every time I'm like, ooh, Kanan Jarrus is cool, ooh, Hera is even cooler, I can't wait to see what they do next. I turn the page and it's like, hey, it's me, Skelly. I'm going to hijack the book for another 4 chapters. And I'm just like, I don't care about Skelly. There's none of that in here. The new characters are interesting, but not more interesting than the main characters, and they never, ever overstay their welcome. The main villain of the book is a new villain. He's just like a pencil pusher for the First Order, and he's intriguing, and as you're reading about him, you're like, oh, this guy's pretty cool. I could stand to learn some more about him, but it's never too much, because, his chapters are quick, and then once his chapter ends, you turn the page, and it's like, Poe and Snap, and I'm like, yes, Poe and Snap, great. I want to learn more about Poe and Snap. Jessica Pava? Great, I want to hear more about Jessica Pava. Rebecca Roanhorse knows, hey, these are the characters that people fell in love with. Let us give them more of those characters in these books. But what I'm really excited to talk about with Resistance Reborn, what's, in my opinion, its coolest feature, is that in the way that The Rise of Skywalker is set to be the culmination of the Skywalker saga, and it's going to sort of connect everything that's come before it and bring it to a close, Resistance Reborn feels like it's doing the exact same thing with other facets of new canon. It's like Resistance Reborn is the Rise of Skywalker of the expanded universe. And here's what I mean by that. By the end of this book, Resistance Reborn works as a sequel to all the following things. It works as a sequel to Bloodline. It works as a sequel to the Aftermath trilogy. It works as a sequel to Battlefront 2, and it works as a sequel to the Shattered Empire and Poe Dameron comics. All of those stories continue their through lines in Resistance Reborn to the point where it feels like Rebecca Roanhorse just somehow completely smoothly streamlined everything into one point, brought it to a close in here, tied up every loose end from those plots in this book, and said, all right, there you go. New canon really feels connected now. Enjoy Rise of Skywalker. And that's the golden ticket here, folks. Get ready to quote me on this, because I'm going to drop this as a quote. If you want to, there's no quotes on the back of this book, but if you want to add a quote from me, Del Rey, here you go. Here's your quote, baby. At no point in the history of Star Wars since the buyout in 2012 has a product of Star Wars canon ever felt more interconnected with other parts of Star Wars canon. End quote, Andrew Fantasia. Think about that. Think of how impressive that is. I can't stress it enough, folks. What I'm holding right now is a sequel to Bloodline, the Aftermath trilogy, Battlefront 2, the Poe Dameron comic, the Shattered Empire comic, all of those storylines tied up in here. That is unprecedented. For Star Wars, for multimedia in general, that is unprecedented. And it's about bloody time, Del Rey. It is. It's about bloody time. We got a piece of Star Wars canon that really feels, for canon junkies like me who love seeing the interconnectivity and love filling in the missing gaps, this is that taken to the highest extreme possible. So as always, I like to rate books and comics and Star Wars canon in general between one of two ways. It's either a crucial piece of the jigsaw puzzle, that is the overarching Star Wars saga, or it's just extra pieces that may or may not be good, but they're just superfluous and more details for fun and giggles. Resistance Reborn is a pretty damn decent book. Not the best book in the saga, but pretty good. But it is absolutely 100% the most crucial puzzle piece, book or comic book or video game that has come out in new canon, period. Guys, there's no way I can stress it enough. If you are looking for interconnectivity in the canon, this is it. This is it right here. This is as good as it has ever been, and I hope it only gets better from here. My final point, and it's just something so personally beautiful to me, is, like I said, I was dying for a book or something where I could just watch the adventures of Rey, Finn, and Poe and see them do things, because they're so closely tied to the movies as a trio, especially Rey, who's like the centerpiece of everything. She's so closely tied to the movies that it's such a shame that I never get to see her in anything else. I never get to open a book and be like, Rey looked out the window, blah, blah, blah. Not until now. Now, Rey is in this book. She's not in it super lots. This is mostly Poe and Leia's story. There's some cameos in here, by the way, that when you see them, you're going to be like, oh my God, they remembered to bring that person back? I'm not going to spoil those. But yes, Rey is in this book. The way they handle Rey is really cool because she's very enigmatic. She's always off to the side. Characters are always commenting on how quiet she is. They kept her mysterious while still letting her be a character. And it was so beautiful to me, such a breath of fresh air to see Rey, Finn, and Poe interacting in something that's not a movie for the first time. It's just wonderful. And I want to read something to you right now. I'm going to read you the final line of the book. It's not a spoiler. It really isn't. The final line of the book is not going to spoil anything for you. This takes place before The Rise of Skywalker. You all know that Rey, Finn, and Poe are very much alive at the beginning of Rise of Skywalker, so it's not going to spoil you to know that they are here at the end of this book. But the final line of this book is something I've been waiting to hear for years. All right, here it is. Poe slung an arm around Finn's shoulders and pulled Rey in close on the opposite side. That's right, Poe said. She's got us. Now let's go save the galaxy. Do you have any idea how long I have waited to see Poe, Finn, and Rey just arm in arm, just hanging out, just being bros, just chilling and talking and laughing and smiling? Thank you, Rebecca Roanhorse, for making that real. I hope all three of these characters survive the movie because, like I said, I'm still pulling for a two guys, a girl, and a pizza place situation where it's Rey, Finn, and Poe on Endor, and they just open a pizza store and they just have a wonderful, wonderful life together. But that's Resistance Reborn. That has been High Ground. I'm Andrew Fantasia. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I'll see you all next time. Until then, may the force of others be with you.
Hey scumbags, thanks for watching. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up on our video. As always, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Rebel Scum Podcast, for all the latest videos.